The silence in AP Calculus isn't actually silent. It's a pressurized vacuum. It's the sound of 30 hearts beating against their ribs, the scratching of graphite on mead paper, and, if you're sitting in the second row, seat 4, it's the rhythmic, soft clack-clack of Ms. Gable's heels as she paces the front of the room. Ms. Gable didn't teach math. She performed it. She was 28, maybe 29, with a penchant for silk blouses that looked like spilled ink and a way of tucking a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear that made me forget how to breathe. To the rest of the class, she was the grinder because her exams were brutal. To me, she was a puzzle I was willing to spend my entire life solving. I wasn't a creep. I was just observant. I noticed that she drank her coffee black from a ceramic mug with a chipped handle. I noticed that when she got excited about a complex derivative, her cheeks would flush a faint, dusty rose. I noticed that she never wore a wedding ring, but there was a pale circle of skin on her left hand that suggested she used to. Leo, her voice snapped the tether. I looked up. She was standing over my desk, her shadow falling across my half-empty worksheet. The scent hit me. That signature mix of expensive vanilla bean and the parchment-dry smell of old library books. The limit doesn't exist if the left and right don't match, Leo, she said softly, leaning down. Her hair brushed the corner of my desk. Are you with us? Or are you still lost in the variables? I'm with you, I managed to say, though my lungs felt like they'd been filled with concrete. Good. Stay after? I want to look at your last lab. That was the hook. The stay after. It was the highlight of my week. The 30 minutes of stolen time where the world narrowed down to just the two of us and the smell of dry erase markers. My home life was the polar opposite of Ms. Gable's classroom. If her room was light and logic, my house was shadows and grease. My dad is a man of heavy materials. He smells of wood smoke, motor oil, and the sharp metallic tang of the machine shop he's owned since before I was born. After my mom walked out 4 years ago, he became a ghost who lived in the garage. We didn't talk. We exchanged status reports. Dinner's in the fridge, he'd say, not looking up from a carburetor. Got it, I'd respond. How's school? Fine. Calculus is hard. Do your work. Don't end up with grease under your nails like me. That was the extent of our relationship. He was the provider. I was the investment. He'd spend his Friday nights at the shop or with the guys from the union, coming home late with the smell of cheap beer and peppermint on his breath to mask it. I didn't mind. His absence gave me the space to think about her. That Friday, the stay after session felt different. The sun was setting, casting long, amber slats across the classroom floor. Ms. Gable was sitting at her desk, and for the first time she looked tired. Not the I stayed up grading tired, but a deep, soulful exhaustion. You're remarkably good at this, Leo, she said, looking at my paper. But you're tentative. You see the answer, but you're afraid to commit to the path to get there. I don't want to get it wrong, I said, my voice cracking slightly. She looked at me then, not as a student but as a person. Her eyes were a hazel that seemed to shift in the twilight. Sometimes the wrong path is the only way to find the right one. Life isn't as neat as an equation. It's messy. It's inconvenient. She reached out, her fingers hovering near my hand for a second before she pulled back to grab a red pen. The tension in the air was so thick I could have carved my name into it. I felt a surge of something, call it bravery, call it stupidity. Ms. Gable. Yes, Leo? Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something to start, but you don't know if you're even invited to the party? She froze. A small, sad smile touched her lips. Every single day. I left the school feeling like I was flying. I felt like we had a secret, a shared understanding. I was 17, and in my head, I was already planning how I'd come back to visit her after graduation. How I'd tell her then. The library was supposed to be my destination that night. I needed to study for the midterms, but the adrenaline from our conversation wouldn't let me sit still. I grabbed my bike and started pedaling. I didn't consciously decide to go to her house. My handlebars just seemed to turn that way. She lived in a quiet neighborhood of craftsman-style homes and overgrown hydrangea bushes. It was the kind of place where people valued their privacy. I slowed down as I approached her block, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm. I just wanted to see her light on. I wanted to imagine her sitting there, maybe thinking about our messy conversation. But as I rounded the corner, I saw it. Her driveway was empty. My stomach dropped. It was 8 p.m. on a Friday. Maybe she was on a date? The thought was a physical blow to the gut. I felt a sudden, irrational need to know where she was. I kept riding, wandering through the nearby streets, my eyes scanning every parked car. I found them at Miller's Pond, a local lover's lane, tucked behind a screen of weeping willows and pines. It was a place for teenagers to fumble in the dark, not for someone like Ms. Gable. Her black sedan was parked in the furthest corner of the lot, under the broken street lamp. And parked right next to it, driver's side to driver's side, was a silver Silverado with a dented rear bumper and a local 402 sticker in the window. My father's truck. The world went silent. The sound of the wind in the trees, the distant hum of the highway, it all vanished. There was only the silver of the truck and the black of the car. I dropped my bike in the tall grass and crept forward. My brain was screaming at me to stop, to turn around, to go home and pretend I never saw this. But my feet kept moving. I reached the edge of the clearing. The truck's engine was off, but the windows were slightly fogged. Through the rear glass I saw a silhouette. A woman's head thrown back, the line of her throat unmistakable in the moonlight. Then the dome light flicked on, just for a heartbeat. It was long enough to see her, Ms. Gable. Her blouse, that ink-colored silk, was unbuttoned at the top. Her eyes were closed, and leaning over her, his hand tangled in her dark hair with a familiarity that made me want to vomit, was my father. He wasn't the check-your-oil guy in that moment. He was someone else. He was the man who made her smile that way, a way she never smiled in the second row. The vanilla I had worshipped was being drowned out by the smell of his Woodsmoke. I backed away, tripping over a root, but they didn't hear me. They were in their own universe, a world of variables I hadn't even begun to calculate. I scrambled back to my bike, my vision blurring. I rode home. I sat in the dark living room, staring at the front door. An hour later, the headlights swept across the wall. The garage door groaned open. I heard him walk in, his heavy boots thudding on the linoleum. He paused in the doorway of the living room, seeing me sitting there in the dark. "Leo, why aren't the lights on?" I didn't turn around. Couldn't. I could still smell it on him, the faint, lingering scent of vanilla. "Just thinking about math, Dad," I said, my voice sounding like it belonged to a stranger. "Trying to find the limit." He stood there for a long moment, the silence stretching between us like a canyon. "Get some sleep," he finally said, his voice gruff. "Big day Monday. Monday. Calculus. Period 4. I stayed in that chair until the sun came up, watching the dust motes dance in the light, wondering how I was supposed to walk into that classroom and look at the blackboard when all I could see was the curve of her neck in the back of a silver truck. The equation was broken. And the worst part? Didn't know if I wanted to fix it or if I wanted to watch the whole thing burn.